This podcast is brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel, New Brunswick's only 4-star hotel and a preferred hotel of Rutgers football fans. The Heldridge helps you make the most of your game day weekend, providing premium accommodations in the cultural heart of downtown New Brunswick. Restaurants, bars, theaters, parks, museums, and more are only steps away. Whether you're traveling alone or with a large group, book your stay at the Heldridge and make the most of your game day weekend. Visit theheldridge.com today.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. All three of us are here in May. Not sure how many chances we're going to have to talk this month, fellas, so we're going to jump on anything we got. And right now we got, what do we got? We got the AD search finally. We're going to talk about that. Actually looking for an athletic director. How exciting. We've got another basketball portal edition. I think we're going to be a little bit more enthusiastic about this one than we've been. We've got some football portal news. Where do you guys want to start? What do you got? What do you want to do?
Well, I'd say, go ahead, Pat. You have
listen, I'm ready for the sharpshooter talk. But let's start with the AD. I think that's probably the most important topic we got.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's do it. All right. So they announced the search committee, search firm, Turnkey is going to handle it. That's the good one from what I've been told. Not a surprise. Someone's got to identify the candidates. Advisory committee, 10-person advisory committee. Oddly enough, none of the three of us did not make the list. A little disappointed there. I thought for sure they would seek our expertise. So we're going to give it to them now. Hand over our expertise on this. I will say this, and I don't know if you guys looked at the advisory committee. The one thing that concerns me about this, tell me if you agree, there are 10 names, and I'm not sure that 2 of them could properly frame a question about what's going on now in college sports. Like, NIL, about everything, about dividing up the pot of money, about revenue sharing, about the house deal, about the settlement, about running a modern athletic department. And I just looked at these 10 people and I'm just kind of like, all right, are they qualified to tackle this? It's my one concern about this. Did you guys feel the same way?
Well, first of all, why would they put us on the committee and pay us? I don't know if they get paid, actually. I shouldn't assume that. But we're giving out this information for free. So it would be kind of silly for them to go out of their way to do that. I don't know. I think it's one thing, I don't know if the advisory committee are the only people advising the search, right? I'd imagine that Greg Schiano and Steve Peichel and people that actually, not to say the only people that matter, but the only people that matter are going to have their own input on the process.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Right. The only coach on the list is Meredith Civico, which, she's built a great program in field hockey. I can't imagine they get a big part of the pie as far as revenue sharing. So I don't know. It's hard to know who has impact in what because this process is so opaque. My question is does the fact that they finally started the process 9 months after Pat Hobbs abruptly resigned mean that they finally finished the presidential search, which is already delayed based on their timeline that they announced, which was late April? I have no idea. And I don't even know if Turnkey is the good one. I think this is the first time that Rutgers uses Turnkey. Because they had used another one for the Pat Hobbs stuff. So did that one not do well? And now they switched. I have no idea how any of this works, to be quite honest with you.
They used a search firm for Pat Hobbs. I thought they just used the search firm was one human being, Chris Christie. But maybe they did. I don't know.
I should say for Greg Schiano's search, I believe they had a search firm for that one.
Yes,
I could be wrong.
Another
yes,
way to
this search firm is ChatGPT, Turnkey GBT. Which, let's be honest, is a great application. I fully support it.
Yeah. Let's see what we're going to put in. When you guys talk, I'm going to put in hire Rutgers athletic director in ChatGPT and see how that goes.
Go on to the Rivals message board. There's already a 2-page thread on what the Rutgers athletic director needs to be based on AI.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole,
that's too late.
We're already late on our gimmicks. These fans are
damn.
Rivals did it, like the Simpsons did it.
Rivals did it. Rivals did it. Yep.
Yeah.
So look, the turnkey is there just to kind of vet. The way I generally understand these things, right, is like the school has a list of people they're looking at, and the search firm is there just to kind of do the background dirty work. So there's like a level of separation here, right? They do the background checks. They talk to people around these candidates. They present the school with their findings, and they can be better informed, right? I think that's kind of, I don't think turnkey is selecting the athletic director per se. They're here just kind of siphoning through all the noise to kind of give the advisory committee something they can advise on, I guess.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And you're right. And don't overreact on the advisory committee names. I think Greg Shanna is going to have a big role in this. Obviously, Steve Pike will have some kind of say. I don't know how much. This is, and of course, the new president should pick this person, or should at least be on board with this person. This is why they've waited this long. They could have hired an AD in September, October. They've waited a bit for this point to have the new president. From my understanding is, unless something terribly goes wrong, which I'm not ruling out because it's Rutgers, but unless something terribly goes wrong, they should have a new president by commencement. So that's a couple weeks away. You would think they'd be able to start the search now, gather some names, get to the point where you have 40, 50, just a working candidate list of people, who's interested in the job. And then you'll have the president on board, and perhaps we'll have a new AD by the start of football season, which, would make sense.
Yeah, I think the timing is important now, right? Rutgers relied on Ryan Pisari for however long he's been in the interim role, and by all accounts, he's kind of done a very solid job just keeping things steady and holding the key, I guess, for whomever will be selected in this process. But I know there are some fans that are just up in arms about what took so long and why. I totally understand it from this got delayed because of the presidential search. And there was never, we talked about it so many times, that there was never going to be a situation where Rutgers hired an AD without a president, right? Like, why would you hire someone who doesn't know who their boss is? That's the underlying statement. That's just very simple. So timing wise, I think this all makes sense, right? Get it into the start of the new academic calendar, the new football season, and everything, right? The way that it fell apart at the start of last year's sports season, it should be in place, up and running, full steam ahead by kickoff to the football season and other fall sports.
I do understand why fans. I don't think fans are up on arms necessarily about that part of it. I do understand the ones who are, shrugging or concerned about the fact that the Rutgers has now gone a full year with a lame duck president, with no general counsel, with no athletic director, and with no, if you want to take it further, Rutgers North chancellor.
Right.
It is sort of remarkable, and no disrespect to the interim people in those jobs. It is different than being the full-time person in that job. And I think Ryan Pisari would be the first to tell you that it's been a difficult year not having someone who's leading from the front, who's sharing the vision, who can make difficult decisions. I don't think an interim can do the same things that a permanent person can do. It's been too long. Circumstances aside, you got to get this thing done now.
At a time where the House settlement is in flux every week, and there's different things happening, at a time where you probably have to hire a general manager for basketball, which is a very key position. All this is in the air. It is remarkable.
Yeah.
Right. I could be totally wrong here. Maybe this is how long these things always take. But to me, it feels really remarkable that we're in May and nothing has happened yet.
Yeah, it is. All right.
It's also bad luck that all this happened at the same time, for the record. Like,
of course.
How often does this happen? Probably not very often.
Right. All right. Let's talk about what the new athletic director should be. And I'm going to write a column this week about it. I'm curious you guys' feedback on just what the priorities are for this job. And it's funny, like, I sat down and just started to make a list. All right, let's come up with what this person needs to do. And I mean, without even thinking about it, I'm like 15 in. Like, this is a hard job. I mean, really, like it didn't even like without even like having to put a pencil, stop typing. I just kept, I mean, you could just rattle off a bunch right away. You know, I think by far, and this is going to put this out here first because I think by far raising money is number one, that this person's got to be in a position to come in here and find a way to close the budget gap, to get money for NIL, to solve some of these problems that the coaches are encountering. That is, I mean, by a mile, the most important thing that the new athletic director must do to solve the riddle of the Rutgers donation problem. So I'm taking that one off the board. And I'm curious what you guys think are the other big priorities for this person when they take over. I'm going to throw it open. Give me one good one.
All right. My first one's like a pie in the sky type dream situation that's probably not even attainable. But how about put Rutgers at a driving seat in the Big Ten as opposed to being someone that's just an afterthought? Can Rutgers become a program that is dictating policy? Oh, we can't do this if Rutgers isn't on board. That's I don't know how you get there, what has to happen, but it just feels like Rutgers is the rest of the country, the rest of the Big Ten is like, well, why do we have Rutgers in the Big Ten? What is Rutgers bringing to the table? The idea for this one is to make Rutgers a valuable commodity in the Big Ten and a school that the conference can't exist without.
To build on Pat's, like being proactive instead of reactive. You know, it always seems like Rutgers is kind of waiting to see how things happen before doing anything. And NIL clearly is a prime example of that. Like, what would have happened if instead of, you know, waiting all the way in the back of the line, Pat Hobbs and his administration had been in the forefront of NIL, like what, you know, things could have been radically different. And mine, while Pat is pie in the sky, I'm going to the most basic level possible. Do not commit any sort of scandal. When was the last time Rutgers Athletics had a director that didn't leave in scandal? It might be like not this century. I can't remember the last guy or person, I should say, because Julie Herman was not a guy and she clearly was in scandal as well. So I would just hope that Rutgers' next athletic director, whoever it is, has a normal tenure. Maybe they get fired because they're not great at their job. That happens every day in every field. Maybe just don't become a story in the ledger for a month. That would probably be, in my opinion, the biggest priority of them all.
You're trying to say don't have an improper consensual relationship with one of your coaches. Is what you're trying to say. Absolutely, yes. Don't you know, come in here 30 years after you're caught having a scandal as a volleyball coach at where was it, Tennessee, where Julie Herman was. Julie Herman had one on day one. And day one, it was amazing. When you think about that, all the vetting, all the stuff that went into like making sure you've got someone who doesn't bring just a scandal with them. She brought one with her. It was incredible. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If one of your coaches is hurling basketballs and homophobic slurs, maybe do something first. Again, it goes back to being proactive instead of reactive. Yeah, going full circle. Yes. And I totally, and I think that's a good one because I think the root of many of Rutgers' problems is exactly that. I was like waiting, let's see what everybody else does. Like, let's, you know, and then, oh, you're already late. The wave has come. It's someone's surfing on it, and you're sitting there and you're surfing. Oh, we missed it. So I totally think that's one. I'm trying to come up with things that are a little bit more concrete. You know, I think I want to see someone who can develop a realistic facilities plan. Like, you know, we've talked about the last athletic director was trying to build a new rack. That's crazy. The football coach wanted to build a palace that's no longer a responsible thing to do in college athletics in this era. I just want to see someone who can show me the path forward for what Rutgers facilities are going to look like in 2030. And that doesn't mean, you know, rebuilding a new stadium, but it means doing things to the stadium, which is becoming outdated, doing things to the rack so that there's luxury seating and you can get some revenue on it. Someone pointed out to me the other day that they lose money every time they open the doors to the rack, things like that. You're like, wait, what? They have 8,000 people in the building. They're still not covering what it costs to run the thing. Things like that to just make your head explode. Like I want to see someone who can, you know, map that out for me. That's a big one. And then, talk about the rack. I want someone who's going to give me a plan to fix both basketball programs. And I think that's kind of where you're at now. You're going to inherit two coaches. One, you're going to have a long contract, one, not so much. But, I want to know someone who is not just going in there and saying, we've got our coach, but someone who recognizes that changes have to be made. Someone who's got a way of handling that stuff that, other ADs just kind of shrugged off and washed their hands and, waited for more failure. So that's going to be a really interesting one too. And that question comes up at the press conference. So
it's a long list. A lot of,
it's a long list.
Cover it all, right? We're just on the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, forget it. I'm looking at my list right now. There's like 10 more. Yeah. So
come back for the column.
Come back for the column. It's a teaser. All right. So I don't think we have a timeline on it, honestly, at this point. But you would expect that they would have, if they have a president in 2 weeks, knock on wood, fingers crossed, that this process will begin, and we'll do our best to keep you updated if we hear of candidates. Let me ask you this though: with the candidates, would you support someone outside the realm of athletics, a CEO type person, a business person for this job?
100%. Yeah. I've been on this. I've been on this from the beginning. Like I want at least to interview someone that's been a general manager of a professional sports team in this market, or some sort of role like that, where you understand contracts and negotiations and you can be proactive in the financial realm of player player acquisitions, and can help these programs understand what contracts and whatever next level thinking that's out there that we're not even thinking about. So I think there has to be someone on the list like that, someone from a Giants or Jets who's been around something like that.
I don't think it's a terrible idea, only because of where Rutgers is, right? Like in an ideal world, you hire a sitting AD from a Power 4 program who understands what it takes to be successful, right? Rutgers is probably not in the position to be poaching a sitting Power 5 athletic director. It just doesn't seem realistic. So either you get, an athletic director at a lower level, probably maybe isn't ready to move up to the Power 5 level. I think that obviously the difference in dimension between Group of 5 and Power 5 is absurd. So maybe the best solution is finding a non-traditional person who can kind of, again, to keep going back to the proactive portion of this, can see through maybe a person that's been in athletics for 30 years is just stuck in their ways, one way of thinking. A new person can kind of see things from a different perspective. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think it's the ideal scenario.
It's fascinating because I think that hire that's the high ceiling, low floor hire,
right.
Because it has potential if you hire the wrong person in there who is not attending to all of the details that make this thing tick. And if they do that,
sure,
you better lock down some people like Ryan Passari, people around who understand. You better bring in a couple other deputies, people who understand how to get this, the day-to-day functioning of this thing, of this world. So
good point. Yeah, I think that's important. But right, you've had Ryan Passari for over a decade, now a year in this role. It's almost like passing the baton and whatever you want to say about it, right? Like that's that perfect guy to have and to retain, no doubt.
I do think the very important thing here is someone with experience at a football school, like football experience. Pat Hobbs came from Seton Hall. They didn't have football. It was a whole different dimension. And clearly we saw the growing pains, so to speak. So I think someone who understands how to lead a department that is driven by football. Football is, again, the most important thing here, and that the success of football will determine the success of the department. So we need someone who, one, understands that, and two, can help drive that further towards success.
And that's the one thing. It's funny, like on the list of the 18 things this guy's got to, or woman has to take care of, is football is the stable thing. And you want someone who's going to be able to support that, to work with Greg Schiano. I don't think he had a relationship with Pat Hobbs. Certainly not a productive one, not one that helped Rutgers or helped football. That person has got to be in a supporting role. Like when Greg Schiano says, I need this, that person has got to be ready to deliver. So All right. That's
The way it currently seems to be, right? It seems, I mean, look at the coaching salaries they have in that program. I don't think Greg Schiano's hearing no very often.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to a certain extent as well, like I agree with you that for the most part, what Greg Schiano wants and feels he needs probably should be provided. At some point, maybe a no. Like, I don't think Greg is dead set on a practice facility anymore, right? I think he understands the current necessity of NIL money and revenue sharing and all that. But if he were to change his mind and say, I want a football palace, you probably need someone who could also say to Greg, no, these are the priorities that we stick to. I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think Greg very much understands what is necessary more than anybody else, but that's just kind of a thought to throw out there.
All right. Good segment. Let's move on to Haran Zerno. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Brian?
As a Bosnian native and fluent speaker of Bosnian, I think you're correct.
ZRNO is going to be last alphabetically on whatever team he plays on, barring something significant and surprising. And I got to tell you, I don't know if you can do this, Brian. I don't know if we have this. While we are the third best podcast in New Jersey, I don't know that you have the capabilities to take the photo that I've put of the home gym for KK Slavička, to put that into, and I'm sure I'm murdering that, by the way, Slavička, Slavija. No, I might have gotten that right. Pat, what do you think? As another person with a vowel at the end of his name, Slavička. Did we get that right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, because this building, I mean, it looks like. Oh, did you really just do that? Holy cow!
Never doubt me.
That's amazing. I cannot believe you just did that. There you go. Everything about this. I love this. Like, what? This is where Zerno's team played, according to Wikipedia, which of course could be wrong, in the Bosnian First Division. I mean, it looks like that's where Ivan Drago trained for the fight against Rocky Balboa, right?
That's exactly right.
Look at the car out front.
Is that architecturally the trapezoid as well?
I don't know.
Does that count?
It's got some trapezoidal feel to it. I mean, it is from the. If you told me the same guy who designed the rack designed that building, I'd be like, absolutely, that's what happened there. Yeah,
it was probably built around the same time.
I think it was.
Well,
sure.
if I asked you guys what year this photo was taken, if you told me 2009, 2019, 1979, I would believe you every single time.
I don't.
Because the car, you would think like the cars would be a dead giveaway, but then you realize it's Bosnia, and you're
it's
like,
not,
oh, that's
it looks exactly like an AMC Pacer, but I know it's not an AMC Pacer. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, look at that. That's great. Yes,
terrific.
That place was rocking when Haran Zerno averaged 17.5 points, 3.6 rebounds, 3.4 assist games while shooting 50% from the field and 43.7% from three. This is the player. More importantly, and this is what stuff I look at, he visited Villanova and Miami. Interest from Maryland, Creighton, and Wisconsin. Had committed to Indiana. Like, this is a player that other people wanted for good reason. This is, we've been very critical of some of the additions here that Steve Pikiell this offseason has made. I think this is a good one. Brian?
I agree. Let me start off by saying that I totally agree. This was a good get for all the reasons you listed. Let me go first into a little bit of concerns, and then I'll go into why I think it could work. Okay. You mentioned his tremendous stats in the Bosnian League. I will not purport to be an expert on European basketball, particularly in the Balkans, right? Which is a completely different world than the elite leagues in, Spain, Israel, Turkey, etc. That being said, the year before, he played in the Latvian Estonian League, which you might say sounds roughly at the same level as Bosnian League. Apparently, it is better by not a significant amount, by a decent amount. And in that league, he shot, right? So he shot 46% in the Bosnian League on threes. In the Latvian League, he shot 26.5%. Higher volume. If you get a nice middle ground, probably the shooter you want, right? And the other thing is, like, you listed all those great schools that were after him. I think there was legitimate interest. I think if he could have went to Villanova, he would be at Villanova. I'm not entirely sure that was my understanding is that Villanova wasn't ready to meet the number that he was asking for, NIL-wise, right? And I don't know if Rutgers met that same exact number, but And the other thing is a matter of roles, right? You mentioned him committing to Indiana. I don't know if Mike Woodson, if he's still there, would consider Zerno a starting player on his team at Indiana. I think he'd be at best a role player. Whereas here at Rutgers, he's going to be a starting player and might be depended upon to be the leading scorer for this team, right? That's a big difference in role. I'm not quite sure he's at that ready to be that. Although he's going to be 21 years old and has played professional basketball for 3 years, you'd think that he would be. And the last thing I'll say, the thing is, his thing is, number one, a sharpshooter, right? That's his number one best attribute, is that he can shoot the ball from three. This feels like a kid that when Rutgers felt like it was just one shooter away, Rutgers has been one shooter away for 20 years probably, but when they were one shooter away, this is the guy you'd want to get. This is the guy who can fill the bucket. Right. Now that Rutgers is more than one shooter away, I'm not sure he can kind of fill all those requirements. And the other thing is, last year we saw the lack of ball movement, the lack of creation on the offense in half court. I'm not sure. This isn't a guy that's going to create for himself. He's going to need someone to create space for him to take open threes. And if you look at the rest of the roster, I'm not quite convinced there's anybody that can do that for him.
Yeah, well, there you go, Pat. Once again.
Listen, you guys teed this up for me. Fonseca saying that using the word sharpshooter just flows perfectly into here. So I did not jot down the names of guys that have been labeled sharpshooters that have committed to this program in the last 5 years. However, institutional knowledge, I could run through a few of them. And the only one that's actually been a legitimate sharpshooter was Cam Spencer. And I can at least think of 5 others that were tagged sharpshooters. Zach Martini, Noah Fernandez, PJ Acuff, Hayes,
Issa Cham.
Right. So Oscar Palmquist was an international sharpshooter. So I get very skeptical when I hear that term. So anyway, that was my spiel.
Right.
Maybe he'll prove us wrong, but I think that is always a little bit of a concern. How good of a shooter is this person actually going to be? You watch the elite teams and they all have one. Rutgers, as Brian mentioned, has not had one.
So again, just to synthesize my earlier point, like if he was a key role player on a good team, I think he fit that role perfectly. The name I've seen kind of compared to him was Luke Goody, who played at both Illinois and Indiana, and in his role as like a high volume, sharp shooting three-point shooter, he thrived, right? I don't know if Luke Goody could lead a Big Ten team, or a good Big Ten team, I should say, right? So that's the question to me, is what is the role they expect of him? I think they expect a pretty big role from him, and I think that's not quite where he is at. I think he'd be much better as a role player, but the pickings are a bit slim here for Rutgers, so you kind of take what you can get.
Right. Yeah, it is asking a lot for him to come in and lead a team in scoring in the Big Ten in his first year coming out of Bosnia. Yeah, I mean, it is a lot. We've said this in the podcast now, 6 weeks straight. I mean, everything has to go right for this team, for this roster to be competitive. Like, forget a year, forget winning the Big Ten. Like this, everything's got to go right for this team to finish, someplace in the middle of the Big Ten. And this is just another example of it. Yeah, absolutely. But at least there are some credentials here that you think, okay, there's something you can hang your hat on. It's the kind of player they need. It does check a box here. You're not reaching on someone who didn't play at a big a Power 5 conference like Bay did. What am I thinking of? I'm getting his name wrong. Fall did. By Fall did. You're not trying to get a guy from an NJ.IT who you're pretty sure can't play at this level. I mean, yeah, this at least looks like a Big Ten player. Fingers crossed.
To your point, right? Like Rutgers has difficulties competing for transfers of a high level that played at the Power 5 level. So at least they're going through a different avenue. I could commend the thought of going outside the bubble and looking at all your possible. This is what we kind of preached at the start of the preseason or the offseason. Like it's for Steve Peichel to kind of think outside the box. I don't know if this is entirely thinking outside the box, considering the kid was already committed to another Big Ten school, and Rutgers has been recruiting him since December, right? So it's not like this was out of nowhere. But I do commend them exploring all routes. We'll see if it works out. And again, I think this is a good get, right? Like as an individual player, I think it's a good get. I think the context makes it a bit more difficult.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to talk more basketball? Do you want to anything else you want to say about the roster construction now? Or there's got to be another piece coming, I think, at this point.
So there are 12 scholarship guys. I think they're trying to get to 13, so they're going to get another guy. It sounds like more of a 2-guard, off-ball guard, wing, ideally one that can score, maybe defend a little bit. That's kind of what they're going for. I'm not sure it's going to be a starting level guy, right? One, considering the money they've probably already spent building this roster, you're already getting the 13th guy. And 2, the responsibilities of everyone already there. But I think you add one more guy. I don't think he's going to change the outlook of the roster. So to me, the bigger questions are, do they have enough guys who can shoot? Do they have enough guys who can defend? Do they have a reliable center? Do they have anyone that can create? That's really all my concerns. If you ignore all those concerns, I think this could be a good basketball.
Pat, is it possible, Pat, that we're getting this wrong? That this podcast is missing on this one because
we've never done that before. No one has thought about Rutgers basketball and ever thought set expectations a little off.
But you don't talk about. You've seen people online who are fans, who are experts, who say, okay, look, they've got this is a Steve Pico roster. He's got some pieces. I don't know.
It's when you listen. You set the bar so low that anything is going to be better than it's the complete opposite of last year, right? You set expectations through the roof and come up way short. That's huge disappointment. This team is going to have super low expectations, possibly picked to finish last in the Big Ten, and who knows what could happen. At that point, the only place to go is up.
Yeah, that's true.
I do think they will be picked, if not last, second to last, in front of Penn State. I don't think that'll be unfair. We'll see. I guess the only other hoops thing is they released the conference matchups for next year, which really are just the reversal of what last year's schedule was. But Lathan Somerville is coming to the RAC. That has been confirmed. I think that'll be a fun atmosphere after we didn't get the Gavin Griffiths Bowl last year. And I wonder how
another sharpshooter, Gavin Griffiths.
There you go.
There you go.
Yep.
Lathan was a guy that played a lot off emotion. You saw every time he hit a bucket, he'd pound his chest and was really fired up all the time. I do wonder how he'll play off the emotion of 8,000 people, if it is a sold out game, booing him every time he touches the ball. I think that would be really interesting to watch.
That'll be fun. Something to look forward to. All right, let's take some questions, you guys. We don't have a lot of them. Even our listeners don't know what we should be talking about now. But this is a good one, I thought, from Twitter. Has NIL killed power forward basketball developmental programs that don't have a ton of resources like RU? This is from NJ.com. These programs used to thrive on developing lower-level recruits for years. Now, any promising freshman transfers quickly, and the school doesn't have money for high-end transfers. Yeah. I mean, I think this is exactly what's happening, and it's more glaring in basketball than football because you don't see those guys. Those guys don't play. You can hide a guy on a roster and develop him for a couple of years. Basketball, he's on the court, and you know what he is. I think you're seeing that with Rutgers. The model that got Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker and Caleb McConnell is gone for a large degree, unless you've got the resources to keep them. And you're seeing that. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
I agree. I completely agree with that. Everything you said. I look at a program like Wisconsin last season that was a completely new identity of a program in one season, right? Like they did everything that was not Wisconsin-esque. They scored 100 points, right? 1,000 points a game, and we're running up and down the court. They just they're launching the ball, relying on a transfer scorer. There was no development on that team. They were all kind of outside of the two big men or one big man. So, yeah. And then also I think of Kevin Willard and as being a guy that was a great developer that could just kind of get his team to be right in the tournament every year at Seton Hall, developed, some great players, and he could see the writing at the wall at Seton Hall. He could see the writing on the wall at Maryland that it wasn't going to work out that way. And now he's at Villanova, where he probably should have the resources to usher in the new wave of college basketball as a program that's going to be all in on hoops.
He certainly can't have any more excuses about resources at Villanova.
Right.
People would sell their houses to win another national championship. I think the operative wording of the question is programs without resources, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have resources, you can't retain players and you can't do the developmental thing, right? There is a program that proves that if you really want to do that route and you have the money, you can do it. Marquette did not lose a single transfer, I believe, 3 straight years, and they haven't taken a single transfer, I believe, in 3 straight years. They are an old school program. Shaka Smart is just keeping guys, developing them, and having a lot of success in the Big East doing that. The question then becomes, if you can't do that, do you want to do that? Because Marquette, again, has had success. I believe they won a Big East regular season title, maybe even a Big East tournament title. They get to the NCAA tournament and things don't work out. I don't know if that's because of the developmental thing. I don't know what it is, but clearly I think people at Marquette are getting a little frustrated with that. But they're clearly the exception. There are other programs with a lot of money that could do the retention if they wanted to, but they're all, I mean, Duke did do that to an extent, right? They didn't lose a transfer. They retained all the guys that didn't go to the NBA, but they still are rebuilding the roster through transfers. The question is, what is the retention and development model, viable in this day and age when there are teams that are just building new rosters with elite players, right? UCLA, Mick Cronin could have kept the guy, developed him for over 4 years, or he spent $3 million on Donovan Dent, who's a bona fide stud. And you can't really have any knowing if you can develop a guy of Donovan Dent's level. It's much easier to just pay him $3 million and tell him, here, take the ball and score 20 points a game. It's an interesting question, but I think Rutgers fans should let go of the idea that Rutgers will ever go back to being a developmental program unless, again, the answer to all the questions here are a sugar daddy comes up and gives Rutgers a $30 million NIL budget every year.
And if that hasn't happened yet, I wouldn't count on it happening in the next few months. All right. Other questions. This is a good, I don't know if you guys can do this one, but I liked it. But rank the coordinators at Rutgers since 2000. This is the way back machine. And this is, I'm going to start. That's the question from Ben Weiss on the Twitter. Let me start with this one. Can you tell me who the coordinator was on the 2006 Scarlet defense, the defensive coordinator on that team?
Was it Greg Schiano?
Good job. It was, yes, because I went back and looked at him like, I can't remember who it was. And of course, I can't remember who it was because the person did not exist based on the media guide. Yeah, Greg handled the defense in that year. So that's just a taste of kind of those early days. I don't think there's many you can pull out from that. I certainly think McNulty from those days, he was offensive coordinator from 06 to 08. Those are the best offenses Rutgers has had. I've got to put him on the list of best coordinators. One other name I'm going to throw out there is Fridge. The 1 year he was here, Ralph Friedgen, the 1 year he was here under Kyle Flood, that offense didn't have it. Gary Nova, Leonte Carew, and that's it, right? I mean, that was it. And he still put up points. I mean, scored ridiculous amount of points against some opponents and was competitive in the early Big Ten games. So those are the two I have. I don't know if you guys have any other suggestions to add to the list.
I think Karasimiak's season a year ago was at least in the conversation, right? Like that defense was incredible for what it was worth.
He'd probably be the best bet on the new Schiano staff. Like if you were to identify one person, although I think Shiraka is going to be in that conversation based on what happens this year.
I would say Shiraka already is. I mean,
think he is?
The way he turned around the offense from 2 years ago to last year was very impressive. I thought we had, if you pulled us 12 months ago and said, what is the ceiling for the Rutgers offense? I'm fairly certain they surpassed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? No question.
I certainly think Shiraka. The issue here with me is like, I cannot remember. I can remember the offensive coordinators, McNulty, like you mentioned, Shiraka. Like, who were the defensive coordinators during like Greg 1.0 aside from Greg?
Those early days, I really don't remember either. It's so funny you mentioned that. Like I remember Craig Versteeg. I mean, I remember some of the offensive guys, but I don't in the early days. Now, was Frazier a defensive coordinator back then? That's funny.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I have to go back and look at that. I wasn't around the team as much. Like 2005, 2006 was kind of my starting point for really following this. So, but obviously they weren't good at anything back then. So, Darren Rizzi, but he was like an assistant head coach to those days.
Wasn't he special teams?
Yep, he did special teams too. Yeah.
Schiano's first. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Rob Smith, but that was after I think Greg left. I think
Schiano's first offensive coordinator was the quarterback's father, Hubert,
Yes. Right. Yep.
Ryan Cubitt's dad,
Mm-hmm.
which was just an interesting situation.
It was sort of funny. Yeah. So good question. And it does illustrate, like, for all the talk of coordinators. And then Greg went through not just Greg, but after Greg, every year there was a new there was like 8 straight years where there was a new offensive coordinator. I mean,
Right.
Some of the you could play. I mean, the names that kind of went through that building, it was like a new system, and that was a big problem. Like, retaining coaches was a huge deal because of they could find better jobs elsewhere for more money. And it was, that was I remember that every year we wrote that story about who's the coordinator now.
Yeah.
And then there were some gems like Drew Meringer. There were some. I mean. Yeah, the Ash years that were not successful. The other side of the coin.
Was there a coordinator more polarizing than Sean Gleason, who had an epic 2020 season and then just completely flipped around the next 2 years?
Yeah, polarizing? No, he might be the most. Yeah, because you're right. I think people looked at what he did the first year. You thought, oh my gosh, look at this guy's a creative, outside the box thinking dude, considering especially how bad the offense was the year before. But then that didn't last. Clearly, that the shine kind of went off that very quickly with some questionable calls in big games.
I know we didn't rank them. I think we could all agree McNulty 06 to 08, number 1, right?
I think probably, yeah. He's in the top 5. Yeah. I think that,
to me, he's number 1.
He's number 1. Yeah.
Who would you pick at number 1 then? If it's not McNulty 06 to 08,
he probably has to be him. Yeah, I mean, I do think about Friggy or less to work with. I mean, McNulty did have. There were some weapons on that team. I mean, Ray Rice for starters, Mike Teal, Kenny Britt. He did have some of the best offensive players in Rutgers history. Fridge did not, and it just sticks out like just this. I just remember him coming in and like what it was one of Kyle Flood's. Smartest things he did was recognizing he needed just a guy to come in and just call plays to run that offense and build an offense. And that was pretty good. So good question. I'm sure. Hey, send us in the Discord better names, people we forgot. I'm sure there are tons of them. Yeah. All right. One last question. How do you replace Keome McMiller? Asks Rob, women's basketball star. I think Rutgers was happy to see her go. Like, I don't think there's any question. Like, this was not a player who fit into a team at all for what Cookie Squashing was trying to do, by all accounts, and seemed to just disappear at the end of the season and quit on her team. I don't know if she was really hurt. I don't think there's any question that Rutgers will be does not miss her in the coming year.
The 20 shots she took per game will be distributed among the other players on the team for once. Yeah. And I think, to your point, the mountain of red flags are evident considering where she ended up going, which is Penn State, which might be the only other Big Ten team that's worse than Rutgers. So,
and that would be something if they did. Let's talk about having the situation when Washington comes for the men this year. Like, that would have been interesting if there was a crowd that matched the size for women's basketball, what that would be like when Penn State comes next year. Be interesting.
I thought the bigger loss was 2 years ago when Rutgers lost Kayleen Smickle, right? She was very well-rounded, goes to Maryland, obviously is having a sensational career.
Yeah. The problem is that Washington is in a position now where I think she's got to show some progress in this coming year, or you can start the new AD, move that up on the list of things the new AD is going to have to tackle. And I don't know. Looks like they've had a decent year in the portal. You guys following this? I mean, I'm not watching it closely. Seems like doing okay, but I don't know if it's enough to elevate yourself that at the end of this, you can say, all right, we're no longer at the bottom 4 programs in the Big Ten. We've at least moved up to that next tier. That's what she's got to do, I think. So we'll see.
I mean, they're at the bottom tier, right? So the only way to go is up. They've added a lot of bodies in the portal. I don't know if they've added any impact players. I don't know if there's a net positive based on who they've lost and who they've gained, but they did add a girl from Arizona. She went to Arizona. I don't think she's from Arizona, but she went to Arizona. She was had a really good freshman year. Her name, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but I think she might be the one impact player they added. But we'll see. And we'll see. As far as Washington, like, having to show something, I'm not sure like how high of a priority and if it would be worth, spending a couple $1 million, changing the regime and paying her assistant coaches and her for the rest of their contracts. That'd be something to kind of look at in the offseason, but there might be more important things on the AD's plate.
Lauren Swan from Arizona.
That's exactly it.
Thank you. There you go. Glad I could help. All right. What else? I got a good what else for you. Just stumbled upon this on Twitter. 5 golds and 2 silver lead to our first Eastern Sprints team title on Lake Quinsigamond. Crew. Lake Quinsigamond. Quinsigamond. Lake Quinsigamond. Crew victory. Team title, baby. Eastern Sprints. There you go. Glad I can help. What else?
And the golf team punched its ticket to the postseason again, right? They got the invite to the NIT of golf is what we kind of called it last year.
Right. Which they won last year, I think, right? The women won last year.
Right.
Good job.
Dynasty. Baseball swept Illinois this weekend, which is a sneaky important result because they are now in position to make the Big Ten tournament, and they are the last Rutgers team in the spring with a chance of making the Big Ten tournament, or the NCAA tournament, I should say. Men's lacrosse season ended last week. Women's lacrosse season is over. Softball just finished last in the Big Ten after losing to Iowa on Sunday. So the baseball team is the last hope, and Rutgers could really use it because if you looked at the Directors Cup standings after the winter, Rutgers was 100th, exactly 100th. They were one spot behind New Hampshire. They were the last team in the Big Ten by Northwestern was 62nd, and Rutgers was 100th. So they were 38 spots behind, and they're down more than double the amount of points. That is to say, a year after I don't know if it was its worst or one of its worst performances in the Directors Cup, Rutgers is on pace to be even worse. So to go back to the new athletic director's job is like fixing the entire department. Obviously, there's priorities. You can finish 200th in the Directors Cup every year if football is good, but there's a lot of programs that need some help. So the Directors Cup is worth what it's worth, right? I don't know if there's many people outside of us who really care and people within the athletic department, but it's one thing to be near the bottom of the Big Ten. It's another thing to be near the bottom of the country. Do you guys have anything else? I had one more thing I wanted to add. I don't want to keep speaking here. Humongous game in Portugal this weekend. Sporting is playing Benfica at the Estádio da Luz. The biggest game of my lifetime. If they win, they're champions at their rivals. For you guys to understand, this would be like if the Red Sox won the World Series at Yankee Stadium. That is the equivalent of what could happen. You guys should tune in Saturday, 1:00 on Benfica TV. Yes, they own their own TV station and broadcast their own home games, which is a level of unbelievable that would never happen in American sports. I digress. Actually, no, it's like yes. The Yankees have yes. I digress.
Wait, which team are you for again? You're for Sporting?
Yes, the biggest club in Portugal.
Gotcha.
Biggest club in Portugal.
They're the biggest club in Portugal? Wait, the other one, how does the other one have the TV network if they're the biggest club in Portugal? I don't understand.
Well, they have more fans and more history and more tradition.
Well, then how is Sporting the bigger club? This doesn't make it like saying the Mets are the biggest club. I mean, come on.
Because they're the evil empire. And
Benfica?
Benfica is the Yankees of Portugal.
But then they're the bigger club then, by definition of that.
Well, bigger as far as fans and tradition, but we're bigger in spirit and bigger in
bigger as fans, tradition, attention, money, victory,
television
market. Yeah. Other than that, we've got
80% of the fans in Portugal. But we're going to win the title on Saturday, baby. Let's go.
Who found Cristiano Ronaldo is the question.
We did.
Yeah, there you go.
You're not going to make me root against this. I'm with you. I am rooting for you. I'm going to get out my Sporting. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I'll add to this. Not only is it Fonseca's club's biggest week of the year, my Gunners, Arsenal, they're in the second leg of the semifinals of the Champions League. They're down 1 goal in aggregate scoring, which is a concept foreign to American sports as well. I can't remember if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, but it's coming up. It's a big game against Paris Saint-Germain.
And if you want to have a rooting interest, Paris Saint-Germain is essentially owned by the Qatari state, and you don't want to root for an oil state, baby. You want to root for a homegrown, organic, London-based club.
That's
I'm
right.
all in on the Gunners, baby. Let's go.
Okay, the only soccer team I root for. got its ass kicked in Verona 7-0. The Montclair United blue team was not pretty in the rain, driving rainstorm. Verona. If you're from Nutley and you lose to Verona in that fashion, it's just not good.
If it was a sunny day, they would have won.
Long car ride home from Verona. All right. Let's end on that. Soccer talk. It's May. We'll come back and we'll see how Brian's feeling about it. Is Sporting going to win? Are they favored to win this?
I think Sporting, and being completely serious and objective, I think Sporting is the better team. I think playing at the Stadio de Luz in this moment is just enormous. The way it works out is this. If Sporting wins, they win the league. If they tie, they enter the last week of the season with a humongous advantage. If they lose by 1, we're going into a potential tiebreaker scenario. If they lose by 2 or more, they lose the title at the Stadio de Luz, which would make me just unbelievably depressed. So if you want me to be happy for the next 12 months, watch the game on Saturday and root for Sporting, baby.
Okay.
It'd be the happiest moment of my life. No, without question. If they win on Saturday, it would be the happiest moment of my life, maybe for the rest of my life. So a lot is riding on this game.
Man. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I have no choice but to root for Sporting then. I don't want to come onto this podcast and listen to that. Pat, are you going to root for Sporting?
Of course.
He's wearing Sporting colors, baby. He's wearing the green and white.
That's right.
Green and white. All right. Well, on that note, folks, thanks for listening. We'll be back.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant.